If you're a high ticket closer making good money right now, this video might save your entire career. Because here's the brutal truth, 95% of high ticket closers eventually go broke, even the successful ones. And it's not because they can't close deals. I learned this the hard way after my first client in 2019, and recently when I lost my main client, Ali Abdal, when I watched my income just disappear overnight. But after going through multiple rags to riches to rags cycles, I realized that there's 3 mistakes that will destroy your career as a high ticket closer. So in today's video, I want to show the 3 most common reasons why most high ticket closers go broke and kind of share the specific strategies that I wish I knew when I first started. Because if I knew these strategies a lot earlier, this could have saved me months of financial stress, maybe my hair, and months from living in my mom's basement. So let's dive in. Let's go into our first reason. You have no clients. So everyone will eventually start here, by the way, and it is completely normal if you have no money when you're just first starting, obviously. But where this becomes a problem is if you can never actually find a client. What people don't realize is that taking a course is not going to instantly make you rich or anything like that. Having a skill is not going to instantly make you rich. It's being able to use that skill as a service. And in order for this to work, you need clients. The problem is when you don't have any income, desperation comes in. It leads you to make really bad decisions with taking on new clients and all that. And so this happened after my first client. And when I think about my lowest revenue months, there were 3 periods. One after when I lost Ali Abdal, the second period after I lost my first client, and the first time was trying to find a client after I took Dan Locke's high ticket closing course, a typical guru course out there. The thing that saved me in all 3 of those situations is having a really good nest egg and living off my savings. Because when you see your money dwindling, when it gets to a certain level, it just creates this psychological pressure that you need to take any client, you just need to get any sort of cash flow. And it's kind of like dating. Maybe if you haven't dated in a while, maybe your desperation makes you overlook red flags and you take on bad clients, just like how when I dated really hot ABGs, I would look over all the red flags in a relationship as well. So what we need to do is not just having savings, but actually having healthy cash flow so we can make better decisions when starting this, especially if you're new. And so how I'd recommend to do this is if you're new, don't quit your day job too early. I kind of wish I was doing high ticket sales and pharmacy at the same time in an ideal situation. Maybe like, hey, if I'm working in the mornings, I'll take morning calls. If I'm working evenings, take evening calls, and trying to find a client that can accommodate both. This is kind of hard because most clients I know, they want someone that's full-time, even though they're not ready for full-time. But what I realized, the more professional people actually want part-time. So I think you can find a healthy balance between the two. You want to find a founder who wants to offload some of their sales calls and where you can take some. In addition to that, I highly recommend having 3 to 6 months of savings before going full-time, especially when you're in between clients. Like for me and Ali, I didn't know when the next client would come. Even though I got a lot of referrals and a lot of recommendations, not every single recommendation is a good one, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And also another thing to keep you from getting too desperate is just accepting that this is the way it is. The initial wave will be really tough, but this gets easier as time goes on because you make more relationships and all that. But this is actually where it kind of gets tricky, because even when you do have clients and you're making good money, there's another trap waiting for you. And this one actually caught me completely off guard. Let's go into the next reason. You're not diversifying your client base. And by the way, this doesn't mean work multiple clients at the same time. So let me explain. So something in high ticket sales that I noticed with like a lot of beginners was that they treated it just like a job. But the thing is, you're not a job. You're self-employed. You're not getting full-time benefits, and you can be terminated at will. Your client can, depending on your terms of your agreement, most agreements, they can just end the contract right there, and then you're left in the dust. So that's why I said, like, have savings earlier, have some sort of extra cash flow. For me, that's why YouTube fits really well with my lifestyle, because I'm able to collect passive income from YouTube and my investments, and then also make money through active income through high ticket sales. The problem is a lot of newer people they throw all their eggs in one basket, meaning they put everything in just one client, which leaves you very vulnerable if cash flow isn't that great or ads just like turn off or something like that. If you're on just one client loss can just like wipe out 100% of your revenue or income altogether, which isn't really great. And that's why like you don't want to be balling out your lifestyle like out of your means and stuff too. And that's why I think too, like being able to scale up and scale down with your lifestyle is so important. And so you might be asking like, well, Kevin, how do you know this? And so like this actually happened to me when I was working with Ali. He was my main client. I was putting all my eggs in one basket because I was just like, okay, Ali is someone I want to grow long term with. I feel like he has a stable enough business model and he's not going to go broke anytime soon. And so I was on a contractor basis, kind of like initially as his high ticket closer and then eventually his head of sales. Even though I did see some red flags with the pricing and stuff, I brought it up and the business manager at the time was like, hey, we're good. Don't worry about it. We're somewhat profitable, right? Until we weren't. I remember I was selling so much at one point during my last month with Ali that I think I generated in personal commissions alone, probably like 18,000 in 2 weeks, which sounds great on the surface, assuming that you have a profitable product. Because imagine this, you start selling a lot and then you're losing money on every single unit. That means you're losing money for every single sale, which is a death cycle. And so they actually had a look at their P&L, profit and loss, and it turns out they lost a lot of money over the course of the year through this high ticket program. And so literally I had to have the awkward conversation with Ali's business manager and Ali himself that we were shutting down our high ticket offer, which means there's no role for me. And so I went from really stable to zero overnight. Even though I had clients, right, here and there, none of them really panned out until almost 8 months later. And so imagine if I kept up that lifestyle, I was just balling out my brains, right? I'd be completely broke. And there were periods of time where my mindset kind of shifted where I'm just like, shoot, I need to work on more cash flow and stuff like that too. And I don't think a lot of people talk about this, especially as a independent contractor or anything like that, where, you know, having stable income really gives you peace of mind. It allows you to think more strategically, more long-term, but no one really talks about that. And so if I could give myself advice back during the Ali Abdel days, it'd be on how to protect myself. And really the thing is like never rely just on one client. And I think if you can handle it, aim for 2 to 3 clients max. In my opinion, 3 clients is just way too crazy. And most of my closer friends who have a lot more energy than I do, they usually take closing calls for 1 client in the morning and take 1 in the evening. Or like you can do it like that, or you can structure a calendar like some days with client A or some clients with client B and have set core working hours with clients. You would not believe how many closers just like take calls whenever, but I really find that it helps my mind just having core closing hours or core working hours for my clients. And I think as you are taking clients, you want to allocate some time just to look for backup clients, go on interviews and stuff like that. That way you're, 1, building your network, but 2, you're also building demand for you as a future closer if this is your long-term career. Plus, you can always use it just like any sort of job. You can use this as leverage for your current client. You can either negotiate higher rates or you can just jump ship and go to a better opportunity. There's a lot out there. Now, even though you might have multiple clients, there is one more mistake that can still destroy everything you built. And I think the business owners watching this will hate me for saying this, but let's get into a third reason. You're taking too many high-risk engagements with clients. In case you don't know what an engagement is, it's kind of like an arrangement or an agreement with the client. When you're first starting out, a lot of your engagements will be performance only, meaning you're taking on the risk. Whenever you produce results, you get paid. But there's a famous quote by my favorite person, Peter Drucker. He says, all profits derive from risk. And what's been happening in the closing industry that I've seeing is like percentages for commissions are getting less and less and less. The risk you're still taking is quite high. I've had engagements where I've literally done Like actually this was my last client where I was like worried about cash flow and I took them on. But basically I did like almost a month's of work taking on sales calls, and I realized that, hey, they weren't ready for a sales rep, or this offer is not positioned correctly for a high ticket closer. And I did performance only, and I lost that whole month of everything. I did not make anything on that offer, which really sucked. And so when you take on too many high risk engagements, you have massive revenue instability or income instability, meaning you don't know how much you're going to get paid this month versus next month or the month after. And so after you know the skill of closing or how to do sales, your goal actually comes to stabilize that income and have more predictive revenue. And I know like business owners might be thinking, well, like, hey Kevin, if you can absolutely close, then you shouldn't have a problem with performance only. But what a lot of business owners forget is like there's a lot of external factors. Like for example, ad performance can dip sometimes. That's normal. Lead flow can vary. There's no sales calls, and there's no point for me to do inbound closing or anything like that. And then there's like crazy moments like the elections where, whenever there's a presidential elections, it'll drive up the cost of ads too. And the truth is, most of these business owners would not do the same agreements with their clients. So if they have a coaching thing, they're not going to probably coach for results and then get paid on the back end either. So why is sales the same thing? And so the real question you need to ask is, are you open to doing more work for potentially no return? Oftentimes the answer is no, but we feel like we have to say yes because our clients guilt trip us into unfavorable terms, like saying what I said earlier, like, hey, you should be able to be okay with performance only because you should be able to close. And the number one thing I would really emphasize again is like that sales is downstream from marketing. And so if the marketing tanks, you're at risk. And this actually happened to one of my, with my first client where we were doing like 500K per week in revenue. Everything kind of looked great, but then election hit and ads started tanking. And then when ads started tanking, we weren't making the same amount of sales initially. And we're going through this like almost downward spiral where like my clients were struggling, right? We couldn't get as many leads because we weren't generating the same revenue as before. And at the time we were spending about $35,000 on ads per day, which was ridiculous. So almost like 40-50% was going to ads and lead generation. Eventually, the clients started panicking, and so they started asking us to do outbound calling and all that sort of stuff for the same engagement, which honestly was probably not cool. But at the time, a lot of us, since a lot of these are like handshake deals and a lot of like closers aren't very professional because they're salespeople, they did it anyways. And this was the hard lesson I learned about revenue predictability. And so, okay, how do you kind of prevent this? Well, you have to structure better deals. One of the reasons why I mentioned to always be interviewing is because you're always like trying to increase your capacity. You have a maximum capacity of 2 clients or 3 clients or whatever is in your mind. So if someone wants one of those spots, they need to offer better terms for you. And this has nothing to do with your ability to close. It's just like, hey, you're in high demand and there's only one of you. And so it has to be worth your time. This is that with or without you energy that Daniel Priestley talks about a lot. And so some of the things I would recommend is like you want to switch from performance only to retainer with the and or clause. So it's like a hybrid model. For example, but let's say you want to have a base, let's call it $3,000, right? And so maybe you'll charge $3,000 for all the non-essential admin type of stuff, non-essential closing roles, and on top of that 10-20% for closing, right? Just remember, all profits derive from risk. So the higher your base, the more risk the client is taking, but that way you can build more predictive revenue for yourself. Or for example, you're only doing closing roles, no head of sales, nothing else, no email writings or anything like that, then you might charge an or thing. I got this from marketing, by the way, where they'll do an or clause. They'll be like $3,000 or 10% or whatever percentage, whatever is higher, and they pay out the higher amount. You can do that, but having that base retainer allows you to be like super stable and allows you to have more predictable income or revenue, so you can make longer term plays. For example, you can invest more, you can go into e-commerce. There's so many other things that you can actually potentially do, but it just puts you in a better spot to be able to charge more, either higher percentage or higher base as well. At the end of the day though, we all have to accept that high ticket sales, the reason why we get paid a lot is because we're taking higher risk, but we need to be like a business and manage that risk appropriately. And so look, high ticket sales can be super rewarding when it's really good, but when it's bad, it's really bad. I was like literally losing my mind and stressing over like $1 to $2 grab rides just because I wasn't making a like significant active income at the time. But the truth is, a lot of this comes from managing these risks before you actually needed it, before these risks manage yourself. Anyways, if you're just getting started with high ticket closing, you want to learn the fundamentals, I have a completely free course on YouTube. I don't charge for courses at this time or anything like that. Plus, I have checklists, a day in life. I have a whole playlist on high ticket sales. And this course will also have, will teach you how to land your first client the right way. I'll leave in a link below. Anyways, what else can I help you with? Drop it in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Peace, mud people. Bye.